Let's try that again. Testing, testing, testing. Can we hear? Everybody hear okay?
Yep.
All right. Hey, everybody. How you doing? It's John Brewer. I have the pleasure with me today to have two representatives from the old school square. I have Emelie and I have Elise. Elise, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good to be here today, I guess. It's kind of a upsetting topic, but we're here nonetheless. I'm Elise Johnson-Nail. I'm actually the past chairman of the board. I turned off in January. I was with the board of directors for 7 years. I'm also a donor at Old School Square. My husband and I have donated, I would call, significant funds to the organization and the community. And we firmly believe in the not-for-profit and the mission and the vision and what it's done for the community. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what I know. So maybe ask me what you'd like me to talk about and I can.
Sure, let's just introduce Emelie then too, please, if we can. Emelie, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Emelie Konopka. I am the current chairman of the board for Old School Square. I was interim starting at the end of May and then elected to the position by the board of directors at the meeting in June. So a little bit shy of 60 days actively in the role, but not new to Old School Square. I have been a supporter, volunteer, patron of Old School Square for over 14 years. As well as have been a member of the board of directors for the past 3 years. So, I'm excited to be here today to represent Old School Square and shed some light. Also a bit disappointed. I had a sentimental moment a little bit ago. There was an article that just came out today in the Atlantic Avenue magazine highlighting Old School Square and myself as the new chairman of the board. And it was one of those bittersweet moments to see it in color, but know where we are today. So looking forward to answering some questions today.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, maybe get everybody up to speed if we can. Just give them a brief history of the Old School Square and the relationship that you as a nonprofit has had with the city, and the programs. Just kind of give you the floor for a minute or so to kind of catch everybody up to. Some people associate Old School Square as being like one entity, but that's not the case. It's a management, and then there's a property that's involved that city owns. So can you shed some light on that?
Absolutely. Can I start this, Emelie? Over 32 years ago, as you all may know, that beautiful building behind Emelie had fences around it and it was going to be demolished. Francis Bork and a number of other citizens in our community lobbied together and were able to go to the school district and offer to fix up this jewel and revitalize downtown Delray Beach, which they accomplished. They raised funds. The city gave them a lease for $1 a year, but it was up to Old School Square to raise the money through grants and donations and other sources to get it habitable and not be torn down into a Kmart or a shopping center. Those are the two things that I heard it was going to be. I moved here in 2005 and started coming to Old School Square, but all that was done way before my time. So the organization has been present as a not-for-profit for the past 32 years. And it's interesting to note during that time, we've only had 3 CEOs, and one of them was Joe Gilley. The other 2 were more short-termed, and that is unfortunate and sad. You go through a process to hire people and have a new leader, and for whatever reason, that doesn't work out. But I'm sure all of you understand that happens with cities, with businesses, and it happened to Old School Square. So there is that, but it is a not-for-profit. It's not a management company per se. We provide the arts to the community. We have concerts at the Pavilion that everybody knows. We have the Crest Theater where we do shows and plays and student recitals and all sorts of things. We have our gymnasium where people have their weddings and bar mitzvahs and the Orchid Society and giving back to the community. We have our school, which we were able to go virtual with during COVID and continue classes. We were able to do green screens and white screens and bring children's programming and programming to adults during COVID. We actually one of the very few performing arts centers in the country that was able to stay open and provide programming during COVID. Was it difficult? Oh my goodness, of course it was difficult. A very, very small staff. We had to really pare down. Everybody was working 40, 60, 80 hours a day. Were we perfect? No. Did things happen? Yes. But did we still bring the arts to the community? And did the community know that we were struggling, that we were the board, the volunteers working tirelessly behind the scenes to keep art and music and school given to our community? You know, the other thing I'd like to touch on is, you know, the CRA funding is not a subsidy to Old School Square, the nonprofit. It's a grant. And that grant is awarded for performance and for specific objectives that we are given in order to be paid in arrears. So we provide the services. We give discounts to local nonprofits where we host, oh God, I have a note here because I didn't want to quote anything wrong, but I think it's over 70 a year where they get discounted fees. So let's say the Spady Museum, or let's say someone else, another not-for-profit in the community wants to utilize the facilities, that grant helps subsidize that for lower costs. You know, we do our Free Friday concerts with that grant. We do museum exhibits. We do programs and marketing. None of that goes to salaries. It is all performance-based, and it is a grant. It is not a subsidy. I also want to be clear that it's less than 25% of our budget every year. Dog. In the fiscal year 18-19, the grant from the CRA was only 22% of our budget. In the fiscal year 19-20, it was only 24% of our budget. And in the fiscal year 2021, it was only 22% of our entire budget. So if you do the math and you realize how much the city has given us over 32 years and how much Old School Square has raised on their own over 32 years, which is always more than 75%, it's pretty impressive for this little nonprofit in Delray Beach that helped to revitalize our community. I didn't live here, but I heard there was only one restaurant to eat on the avenue. We were a catalyst of change. And I think we should all feel proud about that. Without Francis Bork and the other people, I know Bill Bathurst's mom was involved. There were a lot of people in this community that were involved in saving the organization and having it be, you know, what it is today. I don't think the school system or the city commissioners or anybody thought that we weren't anything but a sole service provider, that Old School Square, the not-for-profit, would run the building they saved for the future, forever. And I think that's part of the problem here. I think the other part of the problem here is there was a breakdown in communication. Let's call it what it is. It was COVID. Before that, we had a city manager, assistant city manager, that would always come to our board meetings. That ended in early 2019. Suzanne Fisher was the last person to come. And for whatever reason, you know, she's gone from the city, and I can't say I even know what went down there, but I enjoyed her coming. There was communication. She got all of our meeting minutes. She got all of our financials. And before that, it was someone else. There was always someone there to represent the city, to share information, for us to be transparent, show our profit and loss statements, show everything that we have, and to be involved in decision-making and discussion in moving forward. So the lack of communication was both sides. It wasn't just Old School Square's audit is late. Yes, it's late. Nobody's happy about that. But there were other things that were dropped on both sides. And it was it's really unfortunate because, you know,
if I could, I just want to, one of the things that I know did come up was when you mentioned performance in the beginning, and I definitely, I get that. One of the things that I was hearing out there is that performance as far as accounting went and the reporting that was supposed to be done, even prior to COVID, I think there was some miscommunication going on. If I'm reading things correctly, can you address those? Because I know that was one of the issues brought up, was there were certain benchmarks, and in order to qualify for the grants, that, you know, accounting things had to be done. And I know from what Commissioner Boylston was telling me, you know, the state is very, very particular about dotting your I's, crossing your T's, things of that nature, because his opinion, the state has it out for CRAs. and really makes life difficult for them, so that when you're giving money to organizations, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of benchmarks that have to be met that it seems that you folks were missing. Can you address that?
Absolutely, I can address that. So none of us were happy with reporting issues. I just want to go back a little bit. Let's backpedal. Before COVID, let's go to, we were having an audit. We had to get a new auditing firm. For whatever reason, that firm, COVID hit, 9 months go by, and we did not have an audit. And we were trying to be extremely cooperative. We understand you're busy, we're busy. Our books, we had a new CFO who had just inherited old books. You know what that's like. Any business, when a new person comes in and they're going through the books, they have a different way of looking at things and trying to make everything clear and moving forward. And then that organization had to say, we're just not going to be able to do it. Now, at this point, we're already late and everybody is upset. We're not happy. Nobody's happy. We were very transparent with the CRA. They knew every step of the way. We sent letters from the auditors that said, listen, we are not finding anything wrong. We're just not done with the process yet. We had to go through the diligence of hiring another company, and that company got that audit done in 90 days. So I don't know anybody that could do we're talking about a $3.8 million budget, 5 separate groups. We've got the museum, the school, the pavilion, the stage, and our rental business. So we're talking about 5 companies. This was tragic. It was a perfect storm for Old School Square.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. Are you saying that a lot of this accounting and stuff is tied to the city manager? So the fact that we've had,
No, it's an outside auditing firm. You always use a third party when you do your audit to submit.
Right, but are you communicating with the city manager?
Well, which one? We've had a lot in the last.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, do you think maybe there was different expectations from different city managers that you had to adjust your game for that led to some of the delays?
No, we were communicating with the CRA, who we had to report to for our grant. Could we have been more communicative in hindsight? Absolutely. Maybe we should have let the CRA board and the city commission know. I will tell you, I personally invited the city commission to come to a board meeting for the last 5 years. Some of them have been to my home. I've asked them to come. I've had lunch with people. I've asked them to come. Not one of them has come to a board of directors meeting. Not one of them has spoken to our new chair or to me regarding whatever it is they wanted us to fix. Not one of them has.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't quite understand it. I feel that if, they ended the lease without cause. But when you write a letter and when someone writes a letter, they come up with all these reasons why they ended the lease. But if they had ended the lease with cause, per the lease, we would have been entitled to a period to make things right. And we weren't given that opportunity. Now, as a donor who has $500,000 in this organization, look at Margaret, who donated $2.4 million to renovate that museum, $1 million to renovate the Crest building a month before they voted for us to lose our lease. I was at the meeting where Margaret spoke and they voted to let her continue with the building project. What could have possibly happened new or different? They knew we were late already. Everybody knew that we had an issue with our audit, and it wasn't a bad audit, it was a good audit. It just wasn't complete, and now it's complete and it's good, and the next one will be out in the next 2 weeks, I hear, and they found nothing wrong with that audit. So what could possibly have happened in those 30 days to let a woman invest another $1.4 million into a city building, giving it to a not-for-profit, not to the city, and then decide to vote them out 4 weeks later without a meeting with the organization, without a meeting with the donor, without any due diligence? I personally am at a loss. I have lost my confidence. I don't understand. I think it's a huge violation of process. I think that every citizen should be a little bit concerned about this. It undermines the integrity of the commission. the human aspect is missing. What about the employees and the teachers and the girl having her wedding and the bar mitzvah and all of these things? Nobody considered what this really, really meant. And as a donor to other not-for-profits in this community that lease from the city, I have zero confidence that my money won't be wasted again, because it feels personal. It may not be. It feels personal because if you end a lease without cause, Old School Square staff, our CFO and our COO were sitting there waiting to present, but they did it non-agenda, without cause, and we had nothing that we could say because it was without cause. But then now when letters go out, there's cause. So which is it? Is it without cause? Because it's without cause, why are there allegations of impropriety or golden parachutes or all of these things? And if it's with cause, we should have had a discussion and we should have been able to rectify the causes. We've been here 30 plus years. The economic impact that Old School Square has made to this community is unchallenged by any other nonprofit in this city. They're all phenomenal, but Old School Square is bigger. It's a bigger beast. It has 5 businesses. So for me, I think that they didn't do their diligence. And I'm not attacking people as people. The decision that was made by city commissioners that are elected to represent the whole and elected to make decisions that are good for the community should have at least done their diligence. They should have at least had a discussion. And maybe they would have determined and learned that, Old School Square on our balance sheet, I say our, because it's been our for the last 8 years, we own all the equipment, the chairs, the stage, the lights, the sound, the donor list, the computers, the website, the names, the elevator. And when you really look at that, I think the sole source provider should have been Old School Square, because we are not a management company. We are Old School Square. Yes, the city owns the building, but it wouldn't be there without us. And I think that's what gets lost here. And it shouldn't be a them or an us. It used to be a partnership with the city. And what I don't really understand is why it's not anymore, why it's turned into this thing. And now stones are being thrown against good citizens that do nothing but volunteer their time and open their checkbooks. And they're told they've mismanaged for years. And I find that hurtful. I also find it, roll up your sleeves and help. All of those who want to judge, why don't you come on over? Why don't you roll up your sleeves and volunteer and work a concert or help a museum or join our board? I truly don't understand it. Emelie, I know you'd like to add. I tend to talk a lot. I'm passionate about this.
Well, for me, it's the more of the where we are now and, where were we going as Old School Square? And there's so many things about this. I can echo every sentiment that Elise has shared about just the sheer disappointment is, I guess, the greatest word that I have for the decision that was made and how it was made and the lack of true curiosity. You asked a really good question, John. You said, why didn't you have that meeting? Why didn't we get that opportunity? Well, that's a really good question to pose to the commission and to the mayor, because if you have true curiosity and true intent to be a collaborator, you'll ask questions. But there weren't questions asked. There were statements made. I attended a commission meeting on Tuesday, July 6th to introduce myself. Actually, we had asked prior to that meeting to be placed on the agenda as an agenda point to discuss about Old School Square and our relationship with the city and where we were, and it was denied. So I prepared a statement and came to the meeting that day anyway and presented my statement during the public comments, which you have 3 minutes. So I was cut off because my statement clearly would, with any content need to be more than 3 minutes. And many of the fellow board members deferred their time to me so that I could finish my statement. But there was no question at that time. It was a perfect opportunity to have a conversation. And from that point, I was not contacted by a commissioner or the mayor to have a meeting to discuss Old School Square, what the concerns were that came out after the decision of no cause. You know, and there's other things that I find perplexing. So there's been, you know, questions around diversity and equity and inclusion.
I was going to get into that. Yep.
I'd love to address that. So in part, we have to walk the walk and talk the talk. So if we're really committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, the definition of that is to model that behavior. And modeling that behavior means including and being equitable and maintaining fairness and equality treatment for all. And this really didn't feel fair and equitable treatment for all. So for an entity or a group of people to challenge the diversity, equity, and inclusion of our organization when it's not necessarily being represented from that entity that's engaging that question. One thing that we were—
So let me ask you this, was Old School Square doing anything outreach wise to some of the poorer, maybe less fortunate folks that are part of our community?
I mean, absolutely. We had free events all the time at Old School Square, our free Friday concerts. We did partnerships with schools in the community, with other not-for-profit organizations in the community to either host their events on our campus at discount or to no cost. It's part of what qualifies us, John, for our grants. If we weren't doing that, we wouldn't have qualified for our grants, not just from the CRA, but from other government or entities that were providing grants to us. So there in itself validates that we were doing it, are doing it, and actually we're looking to expand upon it. And, you know, the future of Old School Square, we were marching towards an omni-channel approach in the organization. I come to the organization with a 30-year experience in the retail industry. And we refer to omni-channel experiences in the retail industry. And what that means is how can you provide an experience to your consumer where they're at? And where they're at means, where are they personally? So omni-channel, as one of the first things I did in my active role as chairman, was created an omni-channel committee for the organization. And what its purpose was to allow us to take the 5 venues and correlate that back to different events in each venue to support equity in the community. So let's just say, for example, September is Hispanic Heritage Month. So what that would have meant was we would have programming in the museum to support Hispanic Heritage Month. We would have programming on our theater stage and in our pavilion. And then if our renovations had been completed or allowed to be completed, we would have had a professional kitchen and we could have done culinary classes. So when you start to think about the impact that we truly did make, could make, were planning to make, it was all about supporting diversity and inclusion, and not to speak to one audience, but to cross traffic and pollinate the community through these multicultural and diverse experiences. And we've unfortunately now been denied that opportunity.
And I would like to elaborate on, Emelie mentioned the kitchen. You know, our mayor gave me the idea that we should do a kitchen program where we offer a certification from Old School Square that someone can learn how to be a bar back or wash the dishes or a line cook and be employable, a free class to be employable in Delray Beach. I'd already talked to owners and managers of restaurants who said, oh my goodness, we're always looking for really good people. And we wanted to, for free, train those that couldn't afford to get training elsewhere. And that was part of the renovations that Margaret was doing, so that we would be valuable to the community. Not to mention, this kitchen would allow us to host the weddings and the bar mitzvahs and the fundraisers and to have guest celebrity chefs and be a profit center for Old School Square. But it was a way to give back to the community, and nobody asked. Nobody asked us. And that's the whole point. No questions were asked.
Okay, well, it definitely seems like what we're getting here is communication issues from both sides. I want to go back to donor funding if I can, because I know Nancy Chanin actually just put up, and I just read the article too, right before we went on air here. Boca Mag put out an article, I think it was Randy Schultz, and it talked about Margaret Bloom. And obviously, like you said, she's donated somewhere in the area of 2.5 million. And I think that brings up a messy area as we, if we're going to untangle this. You've got donors that have donated substantial amounts of money. They weren't donating it to the city per se. They were donating it to your organization. And obviously I think that's why the building is stopped on Crest Theater, because basically Margaret said, I'm taking my money back because this is not the way that I intend for it to be spent. So that looks like it could be a messy little situation, because I mean, you have millions and millions of dollars that people have invested in Old School Square, but actually with your organization. Can you address that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Not sure where we end up with that. Margaret did indeed take the money back. The city commission and the mayor do have a letter from her. She shared it with me, and I am allowed to share it with the world, which I will share when we're done. Talking about her concerns, I know she feels duped by being told to go ahead and continue with this wonderful renovation and have the rug pulled out from under her a month later. It's just not how you treat people. As far as lawsuits or things like that, I'm in no position to say what Margaret is going to do, or
Right.
not ready to say what I'm going to do. There were a lot of us that not only gave money, but gave our time and experience. You look at Emelie and you listen to her talk. She's free intellectual money, as far as I'm concerned. She's a board member giving valuable time and valuable experiences and knowledge. And you can't buy that. That's somebody who loves an organization, who's doing it for good. And a nonprofit couldn't afford her. We talked about it. I would have loved to have had her be our next CEO. We can't afford her, but we get her for free on the board. I think that all of these things come into play. It's not just Margaret. There's a whole lot of people that have given their time and their money. The volunteers whose whole purpose is to come to Old School Square and collect tickets. It's what they do. They meet their friends. There's so many levels that were affected, and I really don't think that that was considered. And I'm not sure where the donors go from here. I really don't know. We're all in shock. We're hurt because we thought we had some relationships with people that would come and say, I'm hearing this, can we have a sit down? And clearly we didn't have those relationships. And you feel hurt, you feel angry, you feel shocked, and then you don't know what to do. What's the right thing to do? Give up on Delray? No, I think accountability is a really good word. I think that people need to be held accountable to do what they've been hired, elected, or nominated to do. And I don't feel that that's what's happening here. I feel that people are forgetting the part of their job that they need to research. And I'm talking about our city commission. I almost feel bad for them, but I'm too mad to feel bad. But it's a big job to research every single vote. And I've been approached by many to run for city commission. Absolutely no desire, because it's too big of a job. You think about every line item that you have to vote on. If it was me, I would be spending hours and hours and hours and meet with all parties and figure out what is the best for my constituents. What would my people want? I may do a survey. I may ask, now call me naive, I'm not in politics, but I feel that we've been let down as a community, not just Old School Square. This isn't about Old School Square. Old School Square is the catalyst of change. And Old School Square was the catalyst of change 32 years ago and reinvigorated downtown Delray Beach from Delray to Delray. And now maybe Old School Square doesn't make it through this, but there will be another catalyst of change, because I don't think our citizens are going to allow this to happen anymore. You don't treat your volunteers and your citizens without respect and ask them what they think and collect the facts before you make a decision and send communication out there that isn't necessarily true, like the golden parachute. You know, it's utter
Yeah,
ridiculousness.
so like, can we address that? Because I know that was something, I was just on a little thing with Mitch, we were talking about property taxes, and that came up, and somebody hit me up with that as well. So we just cleared the air on that. I believe the last,
I would be very happy to clear.
yeah,
this
Mr.
up.
Gillies, there was rumors, or maybe they're true, or I'm not sure. $300,000 to when he left. Can you address that?
I can. I'm gonna pull my notes out because I believe in sharing facts. So I don't want to miss.
Those are helpful.
I also want to let you know there was no golden parachute. You know, I did have to talk to Joe Gildy today. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. He's up in North Carolina
Yes.
celebrating his birthday.
I saw that.
I had to get his permission to talk about something that really should be happy and celebrated. He led Old School Square for 23 plus years. He retired, and that date, let me look at that date, was September 30th, 2015. For that retirement, we offered him 4 years of pay at a reduced rate. It was $54,800 and some dollars a year, a modest amount considering the service and all he brought to Delray. We had a fundraiser when he left, party, and raised almost $100,000. His retirement was never funded with city money or CRA money. It was funded by private donations. He gave decades of his life to build Old School Square, to cultivate donor relationships, to bring the arts. The man is Old School Square. And I, for one, believe he deserved 4 years of a very small salary as a retirement. And then really, what kind of community wouldn't agree with that? So to call it a golden parachute to get rid of someone, let's talk about paying Jesus $131,193 for a year's worth of service as a city manager. Let's talk about all the other people that have left and what had to be paid out, the lawsuits from developers that building permits come and they go. And let's talk about that. Why would we talk about a man whose legacy was building this amazing organization and the donors that appreciated and loved him and decided to support him and give him a very small, in comparison to what he raised and the economic impact to this city achieved by Old School Square, and to say that he didn't deserve a retirement and to twist it in this golden parachute is frankly unkind. And what about his legacy? You know, most of us that work in a private sector or a public sector and you have benefits and a 401k, what would a 401k have cost Old School Square? Probably a little more than what we gave him in a retirement, but we weren't in a position to set up a 401k for him. But the donors were in a position to give money. And I am mortified that I have to tell Joe's financial information to clarify and make clear a rumor of a golden parachute when nothing has been done but good people trying to give back to this community that they love. And to feel like you're always on a stand begging for forgiveness or begging, and I don't understand. I really, truly don't understand.
You bring up great points. You really do. And, you know, one of the things talking with Mitch, we were talking about too, is, you know, there's a pension thing that's coming down the pike real fast. And I know a lot of the politicians and you know, the commissioners, when they're running, they don't like to address this, but you know, that's going to put a drain on our budget like nothing else. So I love the way you framed that. You know, all the money we've spent on lawsuits and all the stuff that's going on, and you know, $54,000 a year as a type of payment. And if it's being taken out of donor funds, then I'm not sure what the issue is with that. So thank you for clarifying that. I have one question
I want you to know the payments were done in 2019. So why it's coming up now is beyond me as well.
Wow.
We were done paying him. He left in 2015. So that's all.
So someone's asking if they have an event planned for February 5th, should they be worried?
Yes.
Yeah.
Emelie, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one thing, so in you know, the professional realm that I've been in, when you basically announce that you are moving, we'll call it a moving sale or going out of business, your customer confidence rating drops, okay? So when the city terminated our lease, they, as Elise likes to use the phrase, torpedoed our hull of our ship. We have already seen events that we had already posted are not even selling at 30%. We have no donor money coming in now. We have no one signing up for memberships. The city, the CRA is still withholding CRA grant payments that are in the rears that we qualified for and submitted the audit for. But we've not seen that money. There's been no response from them since we provided the information. So we're in a fiscal quandary of how long can we maintain the organization, even though we may have this 180 days, which it's no longer 180 days because the clock is ticking. There will have to be very tough decisions made in order for us to protect, you know, the financial stability of the organization, because again, this is an organization, this is an, you know, incorporated not-for-profit. It does not have to be in the buildings on the corner of Swinton. It could be located in another physical property. So, you know, as a leader of this organization right now, my fiduciary duty, along with the board, is to ensure that we make decisions that can help sustain this organization beyond this terrible decision that the city has made.
And I also want to add, Emelie says, you know, we didn't get 2 disbursements of the grant. That's, I believe it's $375,000 that we've already earned. We already did the programming for. Now they have the audit. It was late, but we still don't have the check. And then there's another disbursement coming. So of the $750,000 that we were awarded to perform, which we performed, and rightfully so, they held the check till they got the audit. I understand, but they have the audit now. We've received 1/4. And I find that scary, really. How many other not-for-profits, you know, somebody mentioned at one of the city commission meetings that a couple of the other not-for-profits had had troubles over the years with audits, with finances, things were happening, and the city helped them. And I can't help but wonder why it feels personal. Why didn't they want to sit down with us and say, we know your audit's late? We had a meeting scheduled to talk about this lease, and that the lease was cumbersome and long, and the city wasn't doing some things they were supposed to do, and we weren't doing some things. Frankly, some of the people on the board didn't even know we had to do them because it's 30-some pages long. It was very convoluted, and we were going to sit back down and clarify things and try to figure out how can we work together again? How can we fix this? Well, that meeting never happened because this vote happened.
So
you
you bring up a great point. We've got like 15 minutes left. I really want to kind of where can we go from here? You know, we've got people that are pleading in the comments here. Like, well, you know, it sounds like, you know, because of a vote, we're losing out. Is there anything that can be done here? Can you sit down with the city? What are our options, or what are can you shed some light on that for us? Because I think there's a lot of frustration in the community right now, because I think we all do love Old School Square. You know, I lived here back in the 80s when it was actually a school, and, you know, seeing it come back the way that it has, absolutely, it's the crown jewel. And you have operated it and played a huge part in getting us there. And the personal donations from the folks that have invested in this city through you, you know, it sounds like it's, you know, maybe we've been married too long and we're not talking to each other the way we should. And, you know, we're not eating dinner together anymore and breaking bread and you know, having events together and doing things together. Is there a way we can repair this relationship and just kind of go look back at this 10 years from now and say, remember when that happened? Instead of making this the end of the road, we took it as an opportunity to improve our relationship and improve what we're doing in Delray Beach. Do you see that road before us, and how can we get there?
Well, John, that's a really good question. And Elise, I hope you don't mind. I'd like to take this one. So, and my dogs might start to make some more noise in the background, but because Beauregard has an opinion about this as well.
Seems that way.
So you used a great analogy about a marriage that's maybe a bit on the rocks, right? Well, I think we all know that there's decision makers in any process. And the decision maker in this is not Old School Square. The decision maker in this is the city and the commission. If there is any opportunity to come together, reconcile, and move forward together, that has to be decided and initiated by the commission and the mayors. And I can tell you, Old School Square is open to having a conversation. We want a conversation. We want a fair opportunity. But we're not the decision makers on that. They truly are. And I think there's many things that have been misled of what the transition will be. I think my most unfavorite term in all of this has been management company. We're not a management company. We're a not-for-profit organization. We have not been paid a fee by anyone to manage a property. We are a not-for-profit organization that qualified for grant money based on programming that was less than 25% of our operating budget. 75% of our operating budget we raised as an organization, not a management company. But when this organization must vacate the buildings, so let's use the analogy of all of us have either bought homes or rented or leased homes, apartments or condos, right? When the tenant that is in it before you moves out, they don't leave you anything. There's no furniture, there's no stocked pantry, there's no towels in the bathroom, there's no toilet paper on the stand, there's no paper towels in the kitchen. We all know you got to pack paper towels in that first box you open up when you go move in day, because there's not going to be any available. When Old School Square leaves the buildings, our property that we own exits with us. So that last day that we're there, the city cannot just come in the very next day, unlock the door, turn the lights on, and it's business as usual for a management company to pick up. There will be a transition period. I don't know what that is. The city will have to answer those questions, but this is not going to be as simple as it's been stated of all will go on just like it's gone on. The character and the content of the programming that has occurred on this campus for 30 years is reflective of the organization that hallowed its halls. Whoever comes in does not have the character and the personality of Old School Square, nor could anyone guarantee that it'll be the same experience for our community.
Great points. I think maybe we should start to wrap this up. Elise, would you like to add anything? I'll give you the floor for the next 5-10 minutes. And I think you guys have done, you ladies have done a great job of spreading or shedding a lot of light. I know I feel like I understand things better. Some of the comments we're getting is, if somebody would take the first step, maybe you guys, what you're saying is you can't take the first step. The city basically has to at least say, okay, let's sit down. It would be great to sit down in a public forum and maybe have some type of a moderated discussion, where we could cut each other off maybe when we got a little too hostile and just kind of like sitting down with a mediator or something to see if there is any opportunity to keep this marriage alive here, because I think that the city of Delray Beach has benefited from you and the donors and everybody being such a big part of this community. So I'll go ahead and let Elise, if you want to add anything to this on the way out, and then Emelie will go back to you if that works for everybody.
Okay, John, thank you. It's emotional for me. I did write a very emotional filled letter to the city commission and the mayor and the CRA board and the city manager. I feel bad for him. He walked into what I would call a hornet's nest, not knowing the emotions that would be behind this and trying to, do what he's supposed to do and do his job. He seems like a nice guy. He did email me back. Ryan Bolston took the time to call me and say, Elise, talk to me. Tell me where you're coming from. I think I got a thank you from Adam. I got nothing from Shelley or Shirley, and I got a thanks for your input from Shirley, nothing from Julie. And I felt like not only do they know me as a person, I know some of these people, not all of them, but I know some of these people, but they should respect people as their constituents and as a donor. And I didn't get a reply from the majority. And then when I spoke to the city commission the next week and read points of it, of the letter, just pieces, and I talked really fast, I was really upset and angry that night. I didn't get a call. Now, after the city commission decided to let Margaret continue with her funded renovations to enable Old School Square to be even more financially independent, I text one of our city commissioners / mayor people and thank them for allowing us to continue and move forward in our mission. And I got a thumbs up. That was the last communication I've had. I don't find that that's good, but I'm willing to overlook all of that. I wish somebody would sit down with the current board and get to know Emelie. If they spent, this is going to come out wrong, but they go to these openings and these ribbon ceremonies and eat dinner at the big event last night, but they can't spend 20 minutes at the table with the new chairman of the board of Old School Square, or with the board of directors, or with our CFO or our COO, and have a conversation. And to me, the real meaning behind the position should be that. And I don't want to say anything bad about the people. They're good people. I just think this was a bad decision. I've made bad decisions. Would I sit down and talk and try to work things out because you don't want to throw away relationships you've had for years? Of course I would. But I don't know if that's enough, John. Emelie used my term, they torpedoed our hull. They've put us so far behind in the ability to raise funds and to be able to get grants that how are we going to finance staying open? That we don't even have our past grant. So if people want to come to the table in good faith and redo or revisit our lease and make it more easily followed by not only Old School Square, but by the city itself, and really come together as a team that we all love this town, and everybody knows that. Nobody doubts that. If we could really do that, I personally have a little baggage that, will that really happen? And frankly, as a donor, giving hard-earned money to this community, I feel once bitten, and so I'm not sure. I know I can get over that, but it's not up to me to plead when they've terminated us for no cause. Now remember, no cause, which means it's just done. We don't get to say, we didn't get a chance to talk. Should we revisit it? Yes, we should revisit it. One of those city commissioners could say a motion to talk about Old School Square's lease. Let's put it back on the table, and somebody could second it and they could vote to do that. But other than that, I don't know. I'm not a politician. I don't see how that works. I would love it to work. We love this organization. We don't want to move the organization to another city, but it's a good option. It's a good option if we have to. And I'm probably saying more than you want to hear, but it's hurtful. And like I said before, I feel like they took the humanity out of the decision without thinking about all of the people that have given decades to this city and what this does and how it impacts them. Because it's not just Old School Square that suffers. I wonder how the other not-for-profits are doing raising money. I know I'm not writing any more checks right now, and I feel bad for them. This hurts them too. It hurts their mission. and their ability to raise funds, because who's next? And I hope that they right the wrong and that we can all say, I probably shouldn't have, or maybe I should have, but maybe we go back to the table and maybe that's possible. I don't know. Emily?
So I want to take the opportunity, and John, thank you so much for being one of a less than handful of people that have asked for me to speak and to spend some time with me. Diane Feen, thank you if you're out there listening. She took several hours of her time to sit down with me and wrote a fantastic article. And she was the first that asked, and you've been the second that have asked, so thank you. But I want to take this time to talk to the staff and the volunteers of Old School Square. They are suffering. This is so tragic. And this is a blow for our community. And there's so much frustration and emotion out there. And the donors, we've talked about the board. My goodness, the city commission has spoken quite frankly about how they feel about our board and our senior leadership in our organization. But the unsung heroes truly are the staff of Old School Square and the volunteers who have given countless hours of their time, their intellectual property and sweat equity to this organization and the community, and they are devastated. And I want those that are listening to hear, you have my gratitude.
Me too.
I could not be more grateful. Even as we stand right now, there's not one that has lost hope about Old School Square and wants to know what we can do, what can we do, what can we change, so that we don't just save some buildings or an organization on paper, but that we keep the people of the organization whole. And I want them to know that they'll have every bit of my commitment and effort to make that happen. I'm a bit of a poet, John, and I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained musician, thus my connection to the arts. It didn't quite pay the bills, thus I pursued my professional career that I'm in, but it has not changed my character of who I am. And there is a song right now that I believe shouts loudly where we are, not only as Old School Square, but a community at this time. There is a battle cry out there right now. Elise spoke about Old School Square being a catalyst of change, whether it's in the past or in the present today. And there's a song by a gentleman named Sam Ryder, and it's called Tiny Riot. And this is not about creating a riot of violence, but a riot of the voice, a battle cry. And there's a section in the song that says, in the darkness, there's a light. You can find it if you try. If you open up your eyes, if you're drifting out to sea, you can just hold on to me and we'll make it to the other side. That's my battle cry. That's my battle cry to the staff and the volunteers, to the community. And I invite all of you to grab my hand. Please come to our campus. We have events scheduled in September. We welcome you to come. I want you to meet and shake the hands of the people who hold this organization together. Thank you to all out there who signed the petitions, put the post up. The words thank you aren't big enough for the gratitude in my heart for all that you're doing to help support Old School Square in this challenging time.
Ladies, I want to thank you both for taking time out and helping to shed some light on this. I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John.
Have a good day.
You too.